It wasn't until much later that I realized what had really happened, but the signs were there. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming, but at the time, it all just felt off. It was a normal family dinner, or at least, that's what I thought it was supposed to be. My sister, Rebecca, was sitting across from me, her eyes glancing over her plate, not quite looking at anyone in particular, but I felt the weight of her stare on me. At first, it didn't hit me. People have their moods, right? I was used to the subtle tension in the family, especially during those get-togethers. But this was different. I couldn't put my finger on it, not then, but there was something brewing beneath the surface. It was more than just awkward small talk or the usual disagreements. This time, it felt like there was something purposeful about the way Rebecca was acting, something I wasn't supposed to notice but did. As we sat there, I couldn't help but feel like she was testing the waters, waiting for the right moment to drop something big. And when she finally spoke, I realized then and there, I was right. But what came next was far worse than I could have imagined. Why didn't I say anything sooner? Why didn't I speak up when I knew something was wrong? That moment, that first exchange, I didn't realize how much it would change everything. I still remember her words, "You never did know when to keep your mouth shut, did you?" Just like that, she dropped the bomb in front of everyone. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was a statement. And when I looked around the table, I saw it. The looks. The silence. Everyone else was pretending not to notice, but I knew they were all listening, waiting for the fallout. And I knew at that moment, this wasn't just about me and Rebecca. This was bigger. So, why didn't I say anything back then? Why did I stay silent? And what was she really trying to do? It wasn't just about a passing comment. There was something more to it. Something deeper. Something I wasn't ready to face just yet. I sat there, still stunned by Rebecca's comment. Her words echoed in my mind as the silence stretched on, thick with tension. I could feel the eyes of the family on me, but no one dared speak up. It was as if we were all playing some unspoken game, pretending nothing had changed, pretending that Rebecca's words hadn't cut straight through the surface-level politeness. But I knew. I could feel it. Something had shifted. Rebecca had always been the type to say things under her breath, masking them with a smile or a sarcastic comment, but this time, it was different. The way she looked at me, like she was daring me to say something back, to make a scene. But I didn't. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, like everyone else, pretending like everything was fine. But it wasn't. And I knew it. It wasn't just about that one comment. That was just the beginning. I could feel it in the way she moved around the house, in the way she spoke to my mom, in the way she talked to me. Like I didn't matter. Like I was some afterthought. Over the next few weeks, I noticed how she started to take control of things. Small things at first. She started making decisions about family events without consulting anyone else. When my mom asked about plans for Thanksgiving, Rebecca already had it all figured out. When my dad brought up the idea of taking a family vacation, Rebecca shot it down before anyone else could even say a word. She was in charge. She was calling the shots. And what bothered me the most was that no one seemed to notice. No one seemed to care that Rebecca was taking over everything, running the show like she was the only one whose opinion mattered. It felt like everyone was too scared to stand up to her. Even my mom, who had always been the rock of our family, started letting Rebecca take the reins. It wasn't just me. It was everyone. It was like Rebecca had this power over all of us, and none of us could do anything about it. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I wasn't sure what to say or how to say it. So I kept quiet. I observed. I watched as the tension between Rebecca and me grew. It wasn't just in the little things. It was in the way she spoke to me, the way she dismissed my opinions, the way she treated me like I didn't matter. But even then, I still didn't speak up. I thought, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe she's just going through something. I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. There was something bigger at play, something I couldn't quite figure out yet. Then, one evening, we had a family dinner at my mom's house. The kind of dinner where everyone gathers around the table, passing the plates, telling stories, and catching up. It seemed like a normal evening, at first. But I could tell something was off. The air felt thick, like there was something unsaid hanging in the room. Rebecca wasn't herself. She was quiet, watching everyone with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. I tried to ignore it, focusing on my plate, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. And then it did. My sister, without warning, dropped another bombshell. You know, she started, her voice casual, but the words carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. I've been thinking about how you always sit back and let everyone else take charge, and I don't know if I can keep letting you get away with it. The words hung in the air like a challenge. I didn't say anything at first. My heart started pounding, and I could feel my palms sweating. This wasn't like the small jabs she'd thrown at me before. This was something deeper, something more personal. I looked around the table, but no one said a word. They were all just watching, waiting for me to react. It was like they were expecting me to back down, to let Rebecca take control once again. But something inside me snapped. I had had enough. But even then, I stayed silent. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to be the one who escalated things. So I just sat there, trying to stay calm, trying to keep my cool. But the tension between Rebecca and me had reached a boiling point. I could feel it. And deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before I had to confront her. The question was, when would that be? When would I finally have the courage to stand up for myself, to speak out and tell her that I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore? And more importantly, what was she really after? What was her endgame? Because I was starting to believe that it wasn't just about control. It wasn't just about her trying to take charge of everything. There was something more at play here. Something I didn't fully understand. And that was the scariest part of it all. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. The subtle tension was no longer subtle. It was in the air, thick and palpable, and Rebecca's control over everything was becoming more obvious with every passing day. It was no longer just about family dinners or small comments. It was about decisions being made without my input, about me being left out of conversations I used to be a part of. I started to realize that Rebecca wasn't just trying to control the small things. She was trying to take control of everything. And the more I watched, the more I understood that this wasn't just about her taking charge, it was about her manipulating everything around her to suit her needs. It wasn't until the following week that it all came crashing down. We were sitting at the kitchen table, having what should have been a normal conversation about a family event. But Rebecca, as usual, had already made all the decisions. "I've already spoken to Mom and Dad about the vacation," she said, not looking at anyone, just staring down at her phone. "We're all going to the cabin next weekend. I've booked everything." I tried to keep my voice steady. I didn't know we had made plans. When did this happen? Rebecca didn't even flinch. She looked up for a moment, but her expression was cold, distant. "You've been busy." I handled it. That was it. The final straw. I could feel the anger boiling inside me, but I kept it in check. It wasn't the right time for a confrontation. Not yet. But I knew something had to give. This was getting out of hand. Over the next few days, the tension only grew. Rebecca started to make more and more decisions without consulting anyone else. She would call family meetings, and when I arrived, everything would already be settled. At first, I tried to ignore it, telling myself that maybe I was just being paranoid. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much control she had over everything. She had managed to turn every family decision into her own personal agenda. I wasn't just a bystander anymore, I was being pushed aside. And it wasn't just about the vacations or the dinners anymore. It was about the way she treated me. The way she dismissed my opinions, the way she cut me off in conversations, the way she acted like I wasn't even there. There was something deeper going on, and I couldn't quite figure it out. I started to question if it was me. Was I overreacting? Was I being unreasonable? But then I remembered that comment she made at the dinner. The way she belittled me in front of everyone. I had let it slide because I didn't want to make a scene. But now I realized it wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a pattern. A pattern of control, of manipulation, of pushing me further and further out of the picture. I had to do something about it. I couldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me anymore. I had to confront her. But every time I thought about it, I hesitated. What if I made things worse? What if confronting her only gave her more ammunition to use against me? What if she turned the whole family against me? The fear of that kept me silent for a while longer, but the frustration was starting to reach a boiling point. I couldn't stay quiet forever. Then came the weekend of the vacation. Everyone was at the cabin, gathered around the fire pit outside, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. I was away from the constant tension, away from Rebecca's control. But even in that moment of peace, something was off. Rebecca was everywhere, organizing, planning, telling everyone what to do. And I realized that no matter how far I tried to escape, she was always there, lurking, controlling everything around her. As the evening went on, the conversations turned casual. My mom and dad were talking about old family stories, and I was just sitting there, listening, when Rebecca decided to drop another bombshell. I was thinking, she began, her voice calm, almost too calm, that we should all chip in for the cabin next year. It's getting too expensive for mom and dad to pay for it all the time. The way she said it was casual, but I could hear the underlying message. It wasn't about the cabin. It was about making sure that she had control over the family's finances, too. She was starting to take over everything, from the family vacations to the way we spent money. That was when I finally understood what she was doing. It wasn't just about being in charge. It was about taking everything. She wanted control over every aspect of our lives, and the worst part was that no one was stopping her. Everyone was just letting her do it. I felt trapped, like I was slowly losing everything I had once had in my family. The relationship I had with my parents, my siblings, my place in the family, it was all slipping away, and I was helpless to stop it. The worst part was that no one else seemed to notice. No one else seemed to care. They were all just going along with whatever Rebecca said, whatever she planned. They were all too afraid to stand up to her. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. Rebecca had been pulling the strings for so long that no one even realized it anymore. And I knew that if I didn't do something soon, it would be too late. It was time to confront her. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I knew it had to happen. And when it did, everything was going to change. But I couldn't do it just yet. I had to wait for the right moment. The tension had been building for so long, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. And when it did, I was going to be ready. I thought I could handle it. I kept telling myself that I just had to keep my cool, that eventually, things would calm down. But when the tension kept growing, when Rebecca kept pushing me further out, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. It all came to a head one Saturday afternoon, a family get-together at my parents' house. It was supposed to be a simple, relaxed gathering, just lunch, a few drinks, everyone catching up. But from the moment I walked through the door, I could feel the tension in the air. Rebecca was already there, talking to my mom in the kitchen, planning the details of the next family event, as usual. I don't know what it was about that day, but something felt different. It was like she was trying to prove a point, to show that she was in charge. When I walked into the kitchen, she gave me one of those smiles. You know the kind, the smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, the one that makes you feel like she's thinking about something else, something you're not meant to know. Hey, just wanted to make sure you're good with the plans for next weekend, she said, her voice sweet but with an edge I could feel. I could see my mom in the corner of the kitchen, standing by the counter, trying to stay out of the way. She wasn't involved in this conversation. It was all between Rebecca and me. I didn't know what to say at first. I felt the frustration building in my chest, but I kept it in check. Yeah, sure, I replied, not looking directly at Rebecca. I knew she wanted me to say something. She wanted to push me, see how far she could go. I'm just saying, it's about time you stepped up and took some responsibility for once. You can't keep letting everyone else handle everything, right? She continued, her tone now more cutting. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I've been handling things just fine, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But I could hear the edge in my own words now. I don't need you to tell me what to do, Rebecca. Her eyes flashed for a second, but she quickly masked it with that smile. Oh, I know. But someone has to make the decisions around here, don't they? The words hit me harder than I expected. It was like a slap to the face. She was acting like she had the right to control everything, like no one else had a say. And that's when I realized, it wasn't just about these little events or gatherings. This was about her trying to control me, trying to control all of us. It wasn't just about what she said. It was about how she made everyone feel like they couldn't speak up, like they were powerless to stop her. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it anymore. You don't get to tell me what to do, Rebecca, I said again, my voice more firm this time. I'm done letting you run everything. The room went quiet. Even my mom, who had been standing by the counter, now turned her attention to us. The air felt thick, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the anger I had been holding back for so long finally spilling over. Rebecca didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, as if she couldn't believe I'd spoken to her like that. And then, after what felt like an eternity, she smirked. Oh, I see. So now you're standing up for yourself, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. It's about time. But don't think for a second that means you've won. The word stung, but I wasn't going to back down. I'm not trying to win, Rebecca. I'm just not going to let you control everything anymore. That was when my mom finally spoke up. All right, that's enough, both of you, she said, her voice more forceful than I'd ever heard it before. It was clear that my mom didn't want to get involved in this, but even she could see that something had shifted between us. The tension between Rebecca and me was no longer just a quiet undercurrent. It was right there, in the open, for everyone to see. But instead of backing down, instead of apologizing like I thought she might, Rebecca just stood there, looking at me with that same smug expression. You think this changes anything? She asked. You think you've won? You're just as weak as I thought. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just trying to control me. She was trying to break me. She wanted to make me feel small, like I didn't matter. She wanted to remind me that, no matter what I did, she was always going to be in charge. And the worst part? She was succeeding. But I wasn't ready to let her win. Not this time. I had stayed silent for so long, letting her control the narrative, letting her make all the decisions. But not anymore. I wasn't going to let her push me around. Not in my own family. I wasn't going to let her make me feel like I had no voice. I stood my ground, looking Rebecca straight in the eye. I'm not weak, Rebecca, I said, my voice steady now. And I'm done letting you call the shots. It's time for you to realize that you can't control everything. Not anymore. The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't because everyone was afraid to speak. It was because they were all waiting to see how Rebecca would respond. And in that moment, I realized something. The power had shifted. It wasn't just about me confronting Rebecca anymore. It was about all of us. About finally standing up to her. And no matter how much she tried to control the situation, no matter how hard she pushed, I knew I wasn't going to back down. Not now, not ever. I sat there, staring at Rebecca, trying to process everything that had just happened. My heart was still pounding from the confrontation, but now, something else was eating at me. There was more to this than just a power struggle between us. I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was going on, something that I hadn't seen before. For weeks, I had been caught up in the subtle manipulation, the little jabs here and there, but now it was becoming clearer. Rebecca wasn't just controlling everything. She was hiding something. I couldn't put my finger on it just yet, but the pieces were starting to fall into place. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about her trying to dominate the family. This was about her trying to cover something up, something that she didn't want anyone to know. But what? What was she hiding? It wasn't until a few days later, when I overheard a conversation that I wasn't supposed to hear, that everything clicked. I had gone over to my parents' house to pick up some things, and as I was walking past the living room, I heard Rebecca talking to my mom. At first, I thought it was just a casual conversation, but then I heard her mention something that caught my attention. "You know, we really need to keep this between us," she said in a low voice, her tone guarded. "We don't want anyone to find out about it." I froze, pressing my ear to the door. "What do you mean, Rebecca?" my mom asked, sounding confused. "What are you talking about?" Rebecca hesitated for a moment, and then I heard her whisper something that made my blood run cold. "The money, Mom. The money that Dad's been hiding. We can't let anyone know about it." My heart skipped a beat. I had heard rumors over the years about my father's finances, about how he had been acting strange, keeping to himself, making odd financial decisions. But I had never expected this. Rebecca was talking about money, something that had been kept a secret from the rest of us. And that was when I realized, this wasn't just about her controlling the family. She had been using us, manipulating us, all to cover up something far more significant. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, listening to their conversation, but it felt like time had stopped. The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. My father had been hiding something. And Rebecca knew about it. But why was she keeping it a secret? Why hadn't she told anyone else? Why was she so desperate to keep it under wraps? I couldn't make sense of it, but I knew one thing for sure, I had to find out more. The pieces were starting to fit together, but I needed more information. I had to confront Rebecca. I couldn't let this go. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had overheard. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, trying to figure out my next move. I had to be careful. I couldn't just confront Rebecca out of nowhere. She was too smart, too calculating. If I was going to get to the bottom of this, I needed to be strategic. I decided to start by digging into my father's finances. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I had to try. I went through old paperwork, looking for any signs of strange transactions or unexplained withdrawals. But nothing stood out. Everything looked normal, at least on the surface. I was starting to get frustrated when I remembered something. A few months ago, my father had mentioned a lawyer, someone he had been working with on some financial matters. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, it seemed like a piece of the puzzle. I had to find out more about this lawyer. I called around, doing some research, trying to track down the name of the lawyer my father had mentioned. It took some time, but eventually, I found a lead. The lawyer's office was located downtown, in a small building tucked away between two larger firms. I knew it was a long shot, but I decided to go there in person. I walked into the office, my heart racing. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but the moment I stepped inside, I felt like I was in over my head. The receptionist gave me a polite smile, asking how she could help. I hesitated for a moment, trying to figure out the best way to approach this. "I'm looking for information about a client of yours," I said cautiously. "A man named John Harris." The receptionist's expression immediately changed. She didn't seem alarmed, but she looked like she was trying to keep her composure. "I'm afraid I can't give out that information," she said politely. "Is there anything else I can assist you with?" I could feel the walls closing in. This was the moment I had been waiting for, and now, it felt like I was running out of options. But then, just as I was about to turn and leave, the receptionist spoke again. "I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but there was something unusual about Mr. Harris's case. He had some paperwork drawn up recently. It's not public information, but if you're connected to him, you might be able to find out more." My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The missing piece. I thanked the receptionist and quickly left the office, my mind racing. I now had a new lead to follow, a trail that would hopefully lead me to the truth. As I walked down the street, I couldn't help but think about everything that had led me here. The manipulation, the control, the lies. And Rebecca. I didn't know what she was really after, but I was beginning to see the bigger picture. She had been hiding something, and I was going to find out what it was. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not now, not after everything that had happened. The truth was out there. And I was going to find it, no matter what it took. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was getting closer to something big. The conversation with the receptionist had given me a lead, and now, I had to act fast. I couldn't afford to waste any more time. If Rebecca was hiding something this big, I needed to find out what it was, and fast. Over the next few days, I did everything I could to dig deeper into my father's financial situation. I contacted the lawyer's office again, pretending to be someone else, trying to get more information about the paperwork Rebecca had mentioned. But the more I dug, the more I realized how deep this was. Every time I thought I was getting closer to the truth, another door would slam shut. I couldn't get any solid answers. The lawyer's office refused to share any details, and the people I tried to reach out to kept redirecting me. I knew Rebecca was somehow involved in all of this, and I started to get frustrated. I was close to breaking. It wasn't until I met up with my brother, Andrew, that things started to fall into place. We had always had a complicated relationship. He was always the quiet one, the one who stayed out of the drama, but I could tell something had been bothering him lately. When I asked him if he knew anything about Dad's finances or the lawyer, he got quiet. He didn't say much at first, just staring at his drink, avoiding eye contact. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said finally, but there was something in his voice that made me pause. "Andrew," I said, leaning forward, "I know you know something. I can feel it. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm just trying to get the truth." He sighed deeply, glancing around the crowded cafe like he was afraid someone might be listening. "Look," he said quietly, "it's not just about Dad's money. It's about everything. About what's been going on behind the scenes for years." My heart raced. This was it. This was the breakthrough I had been waiting for. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Andrew looked at me, his face tense. "Rebecca," he said, the name coming out like a curse. "She's been manipulating Dad. She's been getting him to make decisions, financial decisions, behind all our backs. It's not just the cabin. It's everything." I was stunned. I had always known that Rebecca had been controlling in subtle ways, but I had never imagined it went this far. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, feeling betrayed that Andrew had kept this from me. "I didn't know who to trust," he admitted. "Rebecca's been so clever about it. She always makes it look like she's just trying to help, but I've seen how she twists things. She's been getting Dad to make decisions without consulting anyone else, decisions that affect all of us." I felt my stomach drop. This was bigger than I thought. I had suspected something was wrong, but now I had confirmation. Rebecca wasn't just trying to control the family dynamic. She was manipulating my father, getting him to make decisions that benefited her, decisions that could tear the family apart. What exactly is she doing? I asked, needing to know more. She's been pushing Dad to sell the house, Andrew continued, his voice low. And not just the house. There are other assets, other things that are being sold off, and no one's been told. No one but Rebecca. She's been using her influence to make sure she gets her way, and now, she's pulling the strings behind Dad's back. The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting. I had been living in the dark, completely unaware of how deep this went. How long has this been going on? I asked, struggling to process everything. A few years now, Andrew replied. It started small, just little things, but it's been building up. Rebecca knows exactly how to play the game. She's been working Dad for years, and now it's getting worse. I could feel the anger rising in me again, the same anger I had felt when I first realized how Rebecca had been treating me. But now, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the family, about everything that was being taken from us without our knowledge or consent. I can't believe this, I muttered, staring down at the table. I knew something was off, but I never imagined it was this bad. Andrew didn't say anything for a moment. You're going to have to confront her, you know, he said. His voice serious. The truth needs to come out. You're the only one who can do it. I looked up at him, feeling a sense of resolve settle in. He was right. If anyone was going to expose Rebecca for what she was doing, it had to be me. I wasn't going to let her continue manipulating our family, not after everything she had done. I had the evidence. I had the information I needed. It was time to confront her. I'm going to do it, I said, my voice firm. I'm going to tell her everything. I'm going to expose her for what she's been doing. The words felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I wasn't going to sit back anymore. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. I was going to take control back. And I wasn't going to stop until the truth came out. As I left the cafe, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, determination, fear. But one thing was clear, this was the turning point. No more hiding, no more pretending. It was time to take a stand. And I was going to make sure Rebecca knew that the game was over. I had been waiting for the right moment to confront Rebecca, and now it was here. Everything was building to this one point, and I couldn't back down. I had all the pieces in place. I knew what she was doing. I knew how far she'd gone to manipulate my father, to control everything in the family. It was time for the truth to come out. The problem was, I didn't know how she would react. I knew she wouldn't just roll over. Rebecca was clever. She'd been hiding the truth for years, and I wasn't the only one she'd manipulated. She had the whole family in her pocket, or so she thought. I couldn't let her get away with it. That day, when I finally decided to confront her, I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I didn't want to give her a heads up. I knew if I gave her time to prepare, she would twist everything around and turn it against me. I had to catch her off guard. The family was having dinner at my parents' house, just like we always did. The only difference was that this time, I was going to confront Rebecca. In front of everyone. I arrived early, my heart racing in my chest. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I had no choice. I walked into the kitchen, where Rebecca was already helping my mom set the table. She gave me a quick glance, but she didn't say anything. I could feel her eyes on me, but I didn't look back. I wasn't going to show any weakness. When the rest of the family arrived, I could tell they were all waiting for the usual pleasantries to unfold. But I wasn't going to let it be just another dinner. I wasn't going to sit there and pretend like everything was fine. As we all sat down at the table, I felt a knot in my stomach. The air was thick with tension, and I could sense everyone's unease. They didn't know what was coming, but I did. I was about to drop the bomb. "Rebecca," I said, my voice calm but firm, "we need to talk." She raised an eyebrow, a smug smile forming on her lips. "Oh. About what?" she asked, pretending to sound innocent. I could feel the room fall silent, everyone waiting for me to continue. "It's about Dad's finances," I said, locking eyes with her. "About the money he's been hiding, the decisions you've been making without anyone's knowledge." For a moment, Rebecca didn't say anything. Her smile faltered just slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. But I knew better. I had the information. I had heard her conversation with my mom, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. "You don't have to play dumb, Rebecca," I said, my voice steady. "I know about the lawyer. I know about the papers, the accounts you've been managing without telling anyone. You've been pulling the strings for years, and it's time for everyone to know the truth." Rebecca's face shifted. The smugness faded, replaced by something colder, something darker. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, her voice rising just slightly. "You think you have all the answers, but you don't. You have no idea what's really going on." "Then tell me," I challenged, leaning forward, my voice unwavering. "Tell me what's going on. Tell me why you've been hiding everything from us. Why did you make all those decisions behind Dad's back? Why did you manipulate him into making choices that affected all of us?" Rebecca glared at me, her jaw clenched. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to come up with some way to deflect. But she couldn't. "Not this time. You wouldn't understand," she muttered, looking away. "I've been doing what's best for the family. You're just too blinded by your own ego to see it." The words hit me like a slap, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it. "That's a lie," I said, my voice low but firm. "You've been doing what's best for you. Not for Dad. Not for the family. Just for yourself." Rebecca's eyes flashed with anger. For a moment, I thought she was going to lash out, but she controlled herself. "You think I'm the only one to blame," she said, her voice rising now. "You think I'm the only one who's made mistakes. What about you? You've been hiding in the background, letting everyone else take charge, never once stepping up to help. And now you want to act like you're the hero? It's pathetic." The words stung, but I wasn't going to back down. "I'm not trying to be a hero, Rebecca," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I'm just trying to set things right. And that starts with you. The truth needs to come out. And you're not going to keep hiding behind your lies anymore." There was a long silence after that, and I could feel the tension in the room. Everyone was waiting, trying to figure out what would happen next. Rebecca looked around at the family, her face a mask of anger and frustration. "You have no idea what you're doing," she spat, her voice cold. "You think exposing me is going to solve everything? It's not. You're just going to make everything worse." "No," I said, shaking my head. "I'm going to make everything better. Because the truth always comes out in the end. And it's time for everyone to know what you've been doing." I could feel the power shift in the room. It wasn't just me confronting Rebecca anymore. It was all of us, as a family, finally seeing the truth. I wasn't just exposing Rebecca's lies. I was giving the family a chance to heal, to reclaim what was ours. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was in control. The truth had been set free, and Rebecca could no longer hide behind her manipulation. She might have been the one who had been controlling everything, but now, the tables had turned. And no matter how much she fought it, she couldn't stop what was coming next. I could see the shift happening right in front of me. It wasn't just about me confronting Rebecca anymore, it was about everyone in the room finally realizing the truth. The tension had been building for so long, and now, it was like the walls had come crashing down. Rebecca was no longer in control. She had always been the one pulling the strings, the one making all the decisions, but now, it was different. The power had shifted. And in that moment, I knew everything was about to change. Rebecca looked at me, her eyes burning with rage, but also a trace of something else. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was fear. Fear that she had lost control. And I wasn't about to let her take it back. "You think this changes anything?" she spat, trying to regain some of the composure she had lost. "You think exposing me like this is going to fix all your problems?" Her voice shook, but she was trying to play it off like she still had the upper hand. But we both knew she didn't. "No," I said, my voice steady. "It's not about fixing everything, Rebecca. It's about finally putting an end to the lies. You can't hide behind your manipulation anymore. The truth is out." She took a step back, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to steady herself. "You have no idea what you're doing," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. I could tell that the weight of everything she had been hiding was starting to sink in. She had built her life on this web of lies, this intricate control over the family, and now, it was unraveling right before her eyes. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone in the room was watching, waiting for what would happen next. I could feel my heart racing in my chest, but I wasn't about to back down. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. This was my moment. This was when everything changed. Rebecca finally spoke again, her voice low and cold. "You think you've won, don't you? You think you've exposed me, that you've taken away my power. But you're wrong. This isn't over." She was shaking, her facade cracking with every word she spoke. But the truth was out now. There was no going back. "It is over, Rebecca," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You can't keep controlling everything. You can't keep manipulating people for your own gain. It's over." Rebecca's face twisted with a mixture of frustration and fear. "You don't know what you're dealing with," she said, her voice faltering. "I did what I had to do. I had no choice. But I wasn't listening anymore. I had heard enough." "No," I replied, shaking my head. "You had a choice. You always had a choice. And you chose to betray the family. You chose to manipulate us, to control everything around you. And now, you're going to have to face the consequences." The room was silent as everyone absorbed what had just been said. Rebecca's expression was hard to read now, her anger replaced by something else. Regret? Guilt? I couldn't tell. But whatever it was, it didn't matter anymore. The truth had been revealed, and there was no taking it back. My mom, who had been standing off to the side, finally stepped forward. "Rebecca," she said, her voice soft but steady, "you need to understand that what you've done has hurt everyone. It's not just about the money. It's about the trust you've broken. It's about the family you've torn apart." Rebecca didn't say anything. She just stood there, staring at the floor. I could see the weight of everything settling on her shoulders. For the first time, I didn't see the confident, controlling sister I had grown up with. I saw someone broken, someone who had been holding on to a lie for too long. But the damage had already been done. "We can't just forget this, Rebecca," I said, my voice softer now. "You can't just walk away from all of this. You've hurt too many people, and it's going to take time for everyone to heal." She finally looked up at me, her eyes red. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she whispered. "I thought I was doing what was best. I thought I was protecting everyone. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know what to say." Part of me wanted to believe her, to think that maybe she had just lost her way. But another part of me knew that this wasn't just a mistake. This was deliberate. This was years of manipulation, years of control. And that couldn't just be erased. "You've hurt a lot of people," I said finally, my voice still steady. "And it's going to take a long time for things to get back to normal. But this is the first step. This is where we start to rebuild. The room was still tense, but there was a shift in the air. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but something had changed. The truth had been exposed, and now, it was up to all of us to figure out what came next. As I looked at Rebecca, I realized that no matter how hard she fought, she couldn't win anymore. The power had shifted. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I wasn't going to let her tear our family apart any longer. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same again. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As I stood there, watching Rebecca in silence, I realized that the moment I had been waiting for had come, but the aftermath was just beginning. The truth had been revealed, but now we had to deal with the consequences. The family dynamic had shifted irreversibly. The power had been taken back, but at what cost? I could see the doubt in my mother's eyes, the shock still etched on my father's face. No one expected this. No one saw it coming. And now, we were all left to pick up the pieces. It wasn't just about the financial secrets anymore. It was about everything Rebecca had done to tear our family apart. But as much as I wanted to stay angry, as much as I wanted to keep blaming her for everything that had happened, there was something else I had to face. The aftermath wasn't just about her. It was about all of us. We all had to take responsibility for what had happened. Rebecca had played her part, but we all had our roles in letting it go on for so long. We had all allowed her to control the narrative, to dictate how things went, and we hadn't said anything. I could feel the guilt creeping in, even though I knew I had done the right thing by exposing the truth. But guilt didn't change the fact that we were all now caught in the mess Rebecca had made. And it wasn't going to be easy to untangle. I tried to talk to my mom, tried to make her understand that this wasn't just about Rebecca. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the trust that had been broken, the lies that had been told, the manipulation that had gone unnoticed for so long. But she didn't want to hear it. She couldn't. She was too focused on the pain, on the betrayal. And I understood that. I did. I knew it wasn't just Rebecca who had hurt the family. It was the fact that we had all let this happen without stepping up sooner. But even as I tried to explain it to her, I saw the walls go up. She wasn't ready to confront that part of the story. It wasn't just about Rebecca. It was about everything we had ignored, everything we had brushed under the rug for so long. My father, too, was lost in his own world of confusion and guilt. He didn't know how to process it. He didn't know how to fix it. And neither did I. We were all standing there, in the wreckage of what Rebecca had built, but no one had the answers. It was like we were all trying to figure out how to breathe again in the middle of a storm we never saw coming. The thing was, I knew that things weren't going to magically get better. The wounds didn't heal just because the truth was out. The damage had been done, and it was going to take time for everyone to accept that. The trust had been shattered. The family had been torn apart. And we had to live with that now. Rebecca was still in the picture, still a part of the family, but the dynamics had changed. I couldn't go back to pretending like everything was fine. I couldn't act like the way she had manipulated us all didn't matter anymore. But as much as I wanted to hold on to my anger, to keep fighting for some sense of justice, I knew that the real challenge now was healing. The hard part wasn't exposing Rebecca for what she had done, it was what came after. It was about rebuilding what had been broken. It was about finding a way to move forward, even if it meant dealing with the mess she had created. The first step was confronting the fact that things would never be the same. We had to acknowledge the damage, no matter how painful it was. And then we had to find a way to rebuild. It wouldn't be easy, but it had to start somewhere. And I knew that I couldn't do it alone. I needed my family. The same family that Rebecca had tried to tear apart. I needed them to understand that we couldn't keep going on like nothing had happened. We couldn't sweep this under the rug anymore. The truth had to be the foundation we started from, even if it was uncomfortable. It was time to face the consequences and work together to fix what had been broken. I didn't know where we would go from here, but I knew one thing for sure: I was done being manipulated. I was done letting anyone control me. I was ready to take back my place in the family, and I was going to fight to make sure it didn't happen again. The road ahead was uncertain. The pain would linger. But we would rebuild. We had to. For all of us. And even though Rebecca had tried to break us, she couldn't take away the one thing that mattered most: our ability to come together as a family. It wasn't going to be easy, but we would figure it out. One step at a time. We had no choice but to face the truth, embrace the consequences, and start over. The healing process had begun. It wasn't going to be a quick fix, but it was a start. And that was all we could ask for. For now, it was enough.